the village board meeting to order, please. If you would stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
for which it
the
stands,
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone participating by phone, and welcome to those who will be watching by TV. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll, please.
Trustee Carter.
Present.
Trustee Mariscal.
Present.
Trustee Kazam.
Present.
Trustee Gett.
Present.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Present.
And Trustee DeVore.
Present.
Okay, everyone is present tonight. That's good. Welcome again. We would be at item 4, approval of minutes from the departmental meeting on Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it. We would be at item 5, comments from the audience. So if there's anyone on the line that would like to make a public comment, now is the time. Is there any public comment?
Got one more caller, so I'll make that.
Any public comment? Going once? Going twice? Public comment is closed. We would be at old business. Any old business to come before the board? Hearing none, we'll go right into new business. The first is Trustee Kazam, Economic Development. We have an action item, approval of ordinance 2020-1627, an ordinance approving and adopting the Business Development District Commercial Lease Payment Grant Program for the Peoria Heights Business Development Districts BDD number 1 and BDD number 2. Trustee Kazam, I'd ask for a motion to approve this.
I make a motion to approve this action item.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I do. Okay, Beth, go right ahead, please.
Okay, I'm going to say what I have to say for the next 2 action items, just in an effort to simplify things because we're calling in. So the next 2 programs have been devised and really thought through by Mayor Phelan, Chief Sutton, and Steve Klein in an effort to help business owners in the BDD districts of Peoria Heights, both BDD 1 and 2. The programs intend to provide up to $1,500 in grants to business owners to pay either their lease and their mortgage for their businesses. And in an effort to further encourage applicants in the village, these applications were intentionally simplified. So they require only a copy of the lease or the mortgage statement for the submission, and grant payments are issued after verification and approval with proof of payment provided after the fact. I think Steve Klein is on the line if anyone else has questions about it, but I really want to applaud Chief Sutton, Steve Klein, and the mayor for putting this together and with the help of the BDD and these funds for our business owners in Peoria Heights.
Thank you, Trustee Kazam. I'll go to Chief Sutton next, and then let Steve chime in after that.
Thank you, Mayor. I will just echo what Trustee Kazam stated and drill down just a little bit deeper. I also want to thank our team here at Village Hall. They had an instrumental part in this from the get-go, and will also have an instrumental part as we move forward. Back earlier this year when we created BDD number 2 and extended BDD number 1, we never envisioned that this would be the use of the funds that we would be sitting here talking about tonight. These funds were at first going to be used for facade programs, and they already have, but moving forward, that is where we're drawing from. But given the circumstance, we sat down, and with the help of Steve Klein, his team, Gwen and Nick, came up with this program, and I think it's an outstanding program to get this money back to our businesses, because this was the plan all along when we collected this tax, was to push it back out to our businesses. So that's all I have to add, Mayor, right now. If Steve Klein would like to make a comment.
Steve, anything you'd like to add? Is he unmuted?
He is unmuted.
Oh, there we go.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I would say that I just wanted to add that our group has been working with a number of municipalities ever since the governor issued the emergency declaration on March 16th. And we applaud the Village of Peoria Heights for taking this approach to try to help the local businesses. Obviously, the business district, as Chief Sutton mentioned, it was not the original intention for the funds to need to be used this way, but fortunately there's statutory authority for the village to do this, and to help retain and preserve the business base that it has is essential to the future of the business district and the village as a whole. So yes, Gwen Crawford, Nick Nelson, Attorney Nick Nelson in my office, Herb Klein, another attorney, we've all been very busy putting these types of things together, and this has been customized really for the Village of Peoria Heights based on the funds that it has available, and Stephanie has done a terrific job of tracking all of that and working with us on it. So I'll answer any questions probably, for the sake of time, it'd be easier for me to answer questions if you've had a chance to review the material and have any.
Yeah, Dustin wanted to add one more thing before we take questions.
Just informational purposes, we did have a conference call last week with the BDD committee. They unanimously support it. Obviously, they don't vote on it because it's conflict of interest, but they did unanimously support the project, and we're very grateful. And even early this week, I've received quite a few phone calls because the information has kind of got out what the village has been working on. So I've been hearing a lot of positives throughout the community on this.
So we'd be open for questions or comments.
I just know that this was not originally started off this way. We weren't thinking about this when this was started. And to quote Bert from Mary Poppins, it's a fortuitous circumstance that we have this money here to help all our businesses. And I have no problem with this. I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's going to go back to the businesses anyhow. Let's use it to keep them in business. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Trustee Gett. Go ahead, Trustee Carter.
Okay, so one of my questions was when the chief just answered it about the BDD committee. They do support this. I think it's a great idea also. But I read in there, is it the board also votes on who gets this, or is it strictly just the administrator and the mayor that calls what business gets it or not?
No, those who are eligible, there's no favoritism, or it's those who are eligible. Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, I will be reviewing those, and the reason for that, Trustee Carter, is to streamline this to get these checks cut as soon as possible. But once everything is verified, it's not so much I'm approving, but I will be verifying them. And also with Stephanie, we've already started the database. We have everything in place. Steve Klein is going to, if you will, more or less audit to make sure, we have a record keeping of what's coming in, what's going out. So we do have all that stuff in place, safeguards to keep track of, who is getting these funds and, who's applying.
Okay, so we're only, I just want to confirm what I read. So we're only allowing $125,000, and it's first come, first served. So whoever gets it in there first, that's how we're going down the list, right?
It's a total of $330,000 for both BDD 1 and BDD 2. Now, it is first come, first serve. I'm not really sure. if somebody comes to us and requests, their payment's $1,000 a month, they'll get $1,000. If it's $2,000 a month, they'll get $1,500. So, I don't really know what the rent or the lease payments are for each business, but we'll find out when they make application. But it's a max of $1,500. But if their lease is only $1,000, that's what they'll get, is $1,000. So, and depending on.
Okay, so what maybe Steve Klein can answer this, because in the ordinance on page 3, it says, whereas the village proposes to allocate a total amount not to exceed $125,000. What is that?
That is referring to business district number 1. And then there's $125,000 from BDD 1 that's being allocated for this, and $100,000 from BDD 2. That's for the lease subsidy program.
Then where does
Okay, so we're splitting it up.
Yes.
where's the remaining amount come in then?
The mortgage,
Because it says 330.
well, they're two different.
There's 2 different ordinances.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
So,
Okay, so then here's my next comment on this, and then someone else can go. I honestly think it's a really good idea that we're trying to help out the businesses, and the committee on the DED is for it. My concern is, how do we help the businesses that is not in this TIF district? Because we got to remember, granted, there are I guess maybe if you want to say bread and butter, but we do have businesses that are not in the TIF district. How do we help them?
This is not TIF money, it's
That's
BDD money, there's a big difference, and
This is not TIF money, Trustee Carter, this is BDD, and the only business not in the BDD would be Galena Road. Everybody else, with our extension of BD1, creation of BDD2, the only businesses that are not in the BDD are Galena Road, and they do not pay into it, obviously. So this has nothing to do with TIF.
Right, I get that, but the BDD, those people are in the TIF, right? That's how they get into the BDD?
No.
No, okay. But I still want to see, we got to think about how can we help
Well,
the businesses that aren't in this. We can't, I don't know, I have mixed, like I said, this is a great thing. I'm going to vote for it because I think it's a great thing, but I think we need to start thinking about also the people that are not, the businesses that are not in it that might need help. Because we don't want to lose any businesses,
well, that's only about 20.
whether they're in it or not.
That is only about 25, if I'm correct, that are not in the BDD. Only 25 businesses in Peoria Heights are not in. Approximately 135 in 1, approximately 75 in 2. So you're talking about a small amount. Now, we've had just brief discussions. If some of those businesses were to contact us, how would we approach that? And if that's the case, we've been talking about some options on how we could do that. But again, they do not pay into the BDD. Therefore, these businesses that are recouping this money have been paying into it. So I understand what you're saying, but the funds that we're sending back into the community are funds we've collected from these businesses. The Galena Road businesses, they have not. Now, if they do come forward, we will see what we can do, but I really don't have the answer tonight for that, but we've briefly discussed it. But again, this has nothing to do with TIF. So.
well, we're open for suggestions. If people have suggestions, we are open for suggestions.
I just want to make sure that we're thinking about the people that are not.
We are open for suggestions. We're willing to work with the Chamber of Commerce, and if some of those businesses want to make us aware of what their needs are and how they can help, or we can help them, we're open to that. And we get daily emails and updates from the EDC. The Greater Peoria EDC has been helpful, so those suggestions, please bring them forth. Anyone else? Go ahead, Trustee Weisberg.
I would like to make a statement, Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
Being is that fact that I own a business located inside BDD number 1 and I am eligible for this grant, I would like to abstain from voting on this.
Okay, understood, trustee DeVore. That'll be noted in the record. Thank you. Anything else, Sarah? Go ahead, trustee Weisenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Are only businesses that have contributed to the BDD eligible for the grant?
Yeah, there are parameters in the ordinance, how long they've had to be open, and then after they receive the money, how long they have to be open past that as well. So yeah, there are parameters. And I believe it is three.
So the grant requires that you were open for business as of March 16th, 2020. It does not require that you have generated sales tax into the fund.
Okay.
So it does not specify that.
So could a business potentially benefit from this grant program that hasn't contributed any sales tax dollars?
If they were in the business development district and they were open at that time,
Okay.
and they meet those requirements.
Let me rephrase that. Are there any businesses within the BDD that do not generate sales tax revenue that would benefit from this grant program?
Not that I'm aware of.
Now, they have to generate sales tax, do they not, Steve?
But I think Chief stated it earlier, or Stephanie did, that as long as the property, the business, as long as the business is within one of the BDD areas, and it's for a lease or a mortgage subsidy cost, then they would be eligible to apply for the program. You do not have to be a retail sales tax generating firm to be eligible to apply.
Now, would any
So
of...
there could be types of business, other non-retail businesses that may potentially want to inquire about the program. Yes.
Okay, and to avoid any conflicts, if myself or one of my family members or spouse has a business located in the BDD, I would have to abstain?
Well, the conflict of interest provision that we are generally concerned about most of the time is having to do with the TIF Act, which we're not using in this instance. The same type of language doesn't exist in the BDD Act, but there may be an ethical conflict that anyone who may feel they have some kind of an interest in a business may want to abstain from vote. But I would defer to your village attorney, Mark, to give you advice on that if he's present or accessible to you.
He's not present, but I did speak with him about this because there was another trustee that obviously asked the question, and his advice to me was that yes, they should abstain from voting on it because they would benefit from it. So
Do we know how many trustees are going to abstain tonight?
I just heard from one so far.
Will trustee Kazam be abstaining? No, I do not have any financial interest in a business in Peoria Heights, so I feel that I can vote. Doesn't your husband have a business? He's a renter. Would he be applying for the grant? I don't believe so. It's a philanthropic endeavor, so I do not believe he will be. I'm sorry, my dog's barking. He will not be applying for this. Okay.
You do not believe, or he will not be?
He will not be.
Well, I'm glad we got that out. Anyone else?
I just got a question. Now, these two ordinances can't be looped together and just pass them both at the same time. The other one needs to be voted on separately.
I think maybe just to do things right. Normally, I'm all for
Okay.
streamlining things, but if we,
Separate.
That's fine.
is there anyone else on this question, or anyone want to make comment that hasn't spoken yet?
Is there any reason other than, is it a time issue that it's not going to come back in front of the board for us for approval on the businesses that you're planning to choose for this?
Well, again, going back to streamlining this process to the businesses, I think that's a very, very important component to this, and that's why we've kind of fast-tracked it. By the time we go back to the board, I mean, you're talking about numerous applications. If they all came in at the same time, I guess that wouldn't be an issue, but I expect them to start coming in tomorrow. So as long as they're fax checked, we check it with the lease agreements, the mortgages. That's what my 10-day turnaround was. So I will be going through that and make sure with Steve Klein's office to make sure that we have everybody eligible that is receiving a check. That was my reasoning behind it.
And do we have enough money allocated then that pretty much everyone, are we pretty close to pretty much anyone that would apply would get it?
Yes, again, going back to the amounts per, depending on what mortgage, what each business's mortgage or lease is, it depends. That's why we put in there a first come, first serve. Maybe we run out of the money in the first 3 weeks. Maybe we don't. I really don't know the answer to that, but this will drain that BDD fund. But again, I think it is, and the BDD committee agreed that it is well worth it, because if we have some businesses struggling and don't make it, it really doesn't matter how much money we have in the BDD fund or the facade program. The directive is to keep these businesses afloat, and I think buying them a month's rent or lease is going to be very helpful. And they reiterated that to me today even, that this will save their business where they were probably looking at maybe closing down or having to move, that saving them a month's rent is very, very crucial. And I think it might save a lot of our business. So again, going back to streamlining it, they need the money now. They don't need it in 2 months. They might not be here. So.
Okay. This is, if I may.
I think what Trustee Mariscal is asking is, if every single business that's in BDD 1 and BDD 2 applied for this and received the $1,500 grant, would the $330,000 be able to cover it? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
Because it's $315,000 would be the total of those applications.
Right.
Okay. All right. I was just curious to see if they would all.
Yeah.
If we pretty much had enough to cover most of them anyway.
Yeah.
The only other comment I have is, I read the press release for tomorrow about this, and I noticed that, and I'm saying that the village board should also be recognized in that, and we weren't. We're going to vote on this to go through or not to go through. So is it possible that you can, at least give some credit to the village board as well?
Sure, if you show up tomorrow, we'll recognize you.
I'll be there.
Well, there'll be another press release regarding that. It'll be more detailed because, obviously there's more to put in the next press release because the board is voting tonight. Therefore, this piece of it will be in the next press release, giving the board credit that they voted on it, but I couldn't put that in the press release prior to you voting because it puts me in a catch-22, kind of like it does right now. So if I'd have put it in the press release, you probably would have said, how do you put that in the press release before we voted? So
I'm voting it down.
I held it. So the next press release, Trustee Mariscal, it will be in there that you did vote on it, and I will make sure that you're giving proper recognition, as I just did with this staff here. But no, that is the reason why that wasn't put in there yet, because even though I had an idea the way you were going to vote tonight, I didn't want to presume anything.
Okay, well, I am just taking it that it was the press release that was going to be sent out for tomorrow, and I would hate for you to have to stand up there and say it wasn't approved, so I just wanted to make sure.
Well, we have other things to talk about tomorrow than this, although this will be one of the highlights.
Yeah.
Mayor, this is Steve, if I may.
Yes, go ahead,
make
Steve.
One more comment. I think it's important to keep in mind and keep these two ordinances and these programs in perspective here, that they are literally an emergency stimulus program that's only going to last 1 month. This thing will sunset on June the 5th. And so by June the 5th, you'll be able to have enough information available to assess how it's performed, and if there are funds left over, or if there's any way to extend it or continue it again, then you'll be able to make adjustments and changes in the second iteration of this. But Chief is exactly right. We were concerned that people needed the money right away, and wait 2 weeks for another board meeting or for when a board meeting could be scheduled could present a problem, especially for some of these businesses where time is truly of the essence.
Thank you for adding that, Steve. Anyone else?
I have one more thing, Mayor. So all the businesses within the boundaries of the BDD are automatically included in the BDD, whether they know about it or want to be in the BDD, but they have to actually apply for the grant program. It's not an automatic check that goes out.
Right.
Correct.
We will have applications ready tomorrow if the board approves this.
That is true, and we'll be sending them out. If they're in the BDD district, they're going to send out. Stephanie and the staff here has worked very hard. They will blast them out, so we'll actually send them out. They won't have to go hunting for them.
Okay.
But we will have some on hand if they want some after the press conference.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I say we vote on it.
All right, the question's been called by Trustee Gett. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Trustee Carter.
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal.
Aye.
Trustee Kazam.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee DeVore is abstaining.
All right, that passes, and I want to extend my thanks to the board for supporting this. I really appreciate that. And we're talking about recognition. I certainly want to recognize Chief Sutton, Steve Klein, and Stephanie Turner.
Definitely.
Because I simply had an idea, and they were the ones that figured out how to do this and put in all the time and effort. It took a few weeks, but thank you all very much. Next is the action item approval of ordinance 2020-1628, an ordinance approving and adopting the COVID-19 emergency mortgage subsidy grant program for the Peoria Heights Business Development District's BDD number 1 and BDD number 2 redevelopment project areas. Trustee Kazam, I'd ask for a motion to approve that.
I make a motion to approve this.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I do by Trustee Gett. I know you said you consolidated your remarks, Trustee Kazam. Anything else you want to add on this?
I just think the only thing to make clear to my fellow trustees is that one of these is for a lease and one of them is if you own your building. So, am I saying that right, Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else,
The
Dustin?
same exact ordinance for two different owners, tenantships and ownership.
Okay. And just to give you a quick example, and for the sake of time, but I received a phone call a couple of weeks ago from a longtime Heights businessman, and he owns his buildings. Wasn't looking for help at the time, but was just telling me his story that it's difficult right now. But so we wanted to make sure that we not only helped those who have a lease, but those who have a mortgage. So thanks to the team for working out that detail. Any comment or discussion on this?
I do. Sorry. One question.
These are
So what if they own their building right out, no mortgage, and business is still hard, they still have employees, are they eligible for any grant?
That's a good question. Steve or Dustin? Steve, go ahead. Steve Klein?
I'm sorry, you'll have to repeat the question.
Trustee?
I couldn't make it out.
So if a business owner owns their building without a mortgage on it, owns it straight out, the building's paid off, but they have business expenses and employees, are they eligible for this grant program?
No, unfortunately, the authority that the village is relying on to be able to provide these funds has to be for an eligible lease. And the way these are designed is that they're to help maintain the tenant or the owner's rights to be in that building to continue the business. So it's either a lease payment or it's a mortgage subsidy. We don't have the authority built into these programs to be able to use the money, and the BDD Act does not provide authority for the village to reimburse any kind of other operational expense like salaries or purchasing inventory, that type of thing. You have to keep in mind, and even if you move beyond this and you start thinking about solutions for non-BDD or non-TIF businesses, the two things you have to keep in mind is the statutory authority that the village can rely on to use certain funds, and then secondly, probably most importantly too, for the village is the availability of funds. So we're trying to just use the BDD funds that you have available now so it doesn't take away from any of your other budget obligations right now. But the BDD Act is very explicit in that you cannot use BDD funds for other types of operational expenses.
Trustee Weisberg, anything else?
No.
Oh, good question. Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Are the applications the same regardless if it's a mortgage or a lease? I know we had said we wanted to make the application process easy. I just didn't know if there are two separate applications since these are two separate ordinances.
No, they'll both be one page.
And they're the same regardless, if you own your building or if you're a leaseholder?
There's a different
The
application.
difference is what you're verifying.
Right.
Okay, okay.
Okay, anyone else? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter.
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal.
Aye.
Trustee Kazam.
Aye.
Trustee Gatt.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee DeVore. Are you, Trustee DeVore?
I'm abstaining.
You're
Abstain.
abstaining? Okay.
All right, that passes with one abstention. Trustee Kazam, anything else under economic development?
Yes, I could make a couple other comments. I was going to hold till miscellaneous, but I just wanted to maybe circle back and answer Trustee Weisenberg's question about payment of employees and that type of thing. And I know through the PPP, which is the Payment Protection Program, we've had many businesses in the Heights who have already received their money. And I want to encourage people to continue to apply for this through their bank, because in the initial round of the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, the funds were running out kind of quickly, but applicants are still encouraged to apply for this because obviously there's new funding for the government for this. So those funds, which you get directly from your bank, which come from the government, are set out to pay for these other things that Trustee Weisenberg was asking about, which are your employees and that type of thing. So that's one thing I want to remind our businesses about. And then secondly, I had just a quick update about the comprehensive plan. Would you prefer I save that to the end?
No, please go ahead. Let's get it out of the way.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that we had a meeting today regarding the comprehensive plan, and I realize that hasn't been on the forefront of many of our thinking, but it has been with the village, and I just want to ensure that it's to everyone that it's still on track, and that fortunately the timing has really worked out for us just because we've been fortunate that way. So we met in person earlier, probably about 2 months ago in Peoria Heights, and now we have an advisory panel working session that is intended to be in person in June, and hopefully we will be able to do that in person then, but if not, we can still do it virtually. And things are just continuing on, and we aren't skipping a beat. So I want everyone to feel comfortable about that. And the other thing I would like to encourage you to do is, with all of our residents, to get online, and maybe not today, but in the next few days, you'll be able to get on the Peoria Heights website and fill out these forms, which take about 12 to 15 minutes, and you can give your input. And maybe some of your input has changed throughout this COVID sickness, but we really want your feedback. So those are the things that we've been working on behind the scenes.
Thank you. Just a couple things I'd add, and I hope everyone can make it tomorrow. We've got a lot of good news to talk about tomorrow, including a budget surplus, but also development coming forth in Peoria Heights. These, of course, are all subject to zoning board approval and village board approval, but we have an operator, as you know, coming forth for the pump house. We had a conference call last week with Farnsworth and the KDB group, who are moving forth with their hotel, and they're encouraged because of the economy, that building supplies and costs have come down. They want to move forward quickly on that. We've been made aware of a couple of other projects that some of these were in the pipeline before the COVID crisis, but there's one other in particular that has announced to us that they're ready to move forward with an investment, a $350,000 investment on their property. So we're excited to share this news with everyone, and especially the budget surplus that we're going to, we've closed the year out, and we're excited about that. So hope everyone can make it, and thank you, Trustee Kazan, for your report. We would be at administration with Trustee Gett. The first is, it's just a discussion item, Jeff, non-union and non-contractual employee raises.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Phelan. I was just curious, now, we don't have a contract because we're waiting to see how things turn out at the end of the quarter, correct, Chief?
Are you talking about for the police contract
For
union?
the contract,
For
right?
the police union, yes.
So we usually wait until we have that settled. All right, do you have, you've already got their raises and stuff figured out for the non-union and non-contractual employees?
Yeah, I have a recommendation, but this will be on the agenda next board meeting for the cost of living raises for the non-union, non-contractual
Okay.
employees, which this is just an annual agenda item. This
Right.
had nothing to do with the police contract. That's separate. That's a long-term contract, but that is waiting until after the first quarter to see where we're at before we pick up negotiations with the board, or I guess an update with the board. Negotiations are complete. It's ready to ratify. This is something totally different. This is cost of living for the employees, 3 in the police department, 3 here in Village Hall.
Okay.
So that'll be on the agenda as an action item. If the board votes, it will be next board meeting. But I wanted to
Okay.
bring this to your attention tonight, that this will be coming up, because this is an annual board agenda item we do this time every year. So,
Right.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, because I knew because usually they don't get theirs until after we've settled everything else and smoothed the waters. But I don't have a problem with this, so.
You want
I
that on
move
the
to
agenda
Put it
then
on
for-
the agenda for the next meeting, which is, I don't have a calendar,
2 weeks.
2 weeks from today?
The
19th. Okay.
Anyone else have any thoughts on this?
Mayor, when would these pay raises be effective?
They'd be retro to May 1.
To May 1?
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, Trustee Gett, anything? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I am a little concerned with the economy and the way it's downward trending. I know a lot of employers, or a lot of employees have been furloughed. Luckily, we haven't had to do that with any staff here in the village, which I'm very proud of. But should we hold off on increases just until we see how bad the hit's going to be? I mean, the economy's been dead now for, what, the last 2 months?
Well, doesn't this kind of, because we have that, talking about for tomorrow, you talk, that surplus on the budget, and we're pretty well figured out on this. You figure this every year.
Well, to answer your question, Trustee Weisenberg, we're talking about 6 employees. I'm not trying to downplay that amount, but given our surplus at the end of this year, that is why I will be recommending 3% for the 3 employees at the police department and the 3 employees here at Village Hall. That'll be my recommendation, and I do that because of how we're finishing this year. And I mentioned that at the beginning of this year, we're going to wait and see on my recommendations how our surplus was, and I'm very happy to say, and I gave you an approximate number, and it's actually going to be higher when we release that number later tomorrow. So my recommendation will be the 3% for the 3 employees at the police department and the 3 employees here at Village Hall. So,
And if you still have regrets on it, or, next meeting, you can always vote it down, vote against it, I say. But wait and see what tomorrow tells us.
and I do understand your concern, and that's one reason that I'm proud to say that, you go back 2 years ago, we had a $900,000 deficit, and now we're looking at a huge surplus. So I understand that. I've lived that for 2 years, and that's the reason why I've held our spending close to my vest because of our deficit. But we are in a position that we can afford these raises. Our staff is small, they're efficient, it's well-deserved. That's why I'm recommending it.
I'm just concerned about the fallout from the COVID I don't think it's going to recover quickly, and they're talking about a second wave in the fall.
Right.
So a $400,000 deficit, $400,000 surplus wouldn't last long if we got to shut the economy down for another couple months at the end of the year. I just worry that we're not through this thing yet. We don't know how it's going to play out.
I agree 100%. We're not through it at all. I mean, we still have a lot of uncertainty. We still have a long way to go. But if we got to that point, and you're talking about going through that type of surplus, we're going to have to make a lot harder decisions on cutting personnel. That it's going to be more than just a cost of living decrease or freeze. It's going to be major decisions by this administration and this board if that's the case. And I'm aware of that. Now, that would be the worst. I mean, I would hate to see that when we get into personnel, whether it be public safety, administration, public works. I mean, there's a lot of things because that will affect the village across the board. But I do understand it. But if we get to that point, I don't think that this cost of living is going to be the saving grace of that. I think that we're going to be in much deeper than when it gets to cutting service, so.
And that's a policy decision,
Do we
Trustee
know-
Weisenberg. So, go ahead.
Do we know what the dollar amount would be of what the total 3% for the 6 people is? What that number is?
Do you have that, Stephanie?
I don't have the exact, it would
I don't have it in
be-
front of me, Trustee DeVore. I have it up on my desk, unless Stephanie happened to know off the top of her head.
I'm gonna
A
do some,
ballpark, we have
I'm gonna do some quick math because I can get you pretty gosh darn close. Ballpark, it would be under $7,000, I believe.
Did you hear that, Trustee DeVore?
And
Okay.
I did. And just to clarify, all of our other employees are already contractually agreed to the 3% cost of living increase, correct?
Except for the police department because, well, their contract ended May 1. So again, that will be retro to May 1, but we were not going to revisit that until after the first quarter. But everybody else is correct, is
Okay.
contractual with 3%, right?
And that was at their suggestion, right?
Okay.
That's
Good.
Yeah.
That's real cooperative.
So, Chief, one more question. So I believe this is the ordinance that we voted on last year when the new board came on. Were bonuses included in these pay raises? Because I remember last year, I voted against it because they were packaged.
No, this has not included any bonus. And going back earlier this year, you are correct. I said that I would be bringing to the board, depending on what the surplus was this year, a recommendation on bonuses. Obviously, that would be at an executive session time to go through that, and obviously we can't do that now. But I will tell you that in the future, when can we get together? I'm not sure when that is, but as far as this right here, this is not including those bonuses, which were another 2%.
Okay.
So to clarify, this is just the cost of living, has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, that'll be on the agenda for action in the future, so if you have any questions, please contact Dustin. Anything else under administration, guys?
I have nothing else under administration.
Okay, we would be at miscellaneous. Any miscellaneous?
I got one thing.
I do.
Go ahead.
Okay, I do, but I think I just have to go over the financials, but I can get with Stephanie on that tomorrow. I just need some clarification, but if I'm reading this right, I just want to say kudos to every department for being under budget. And the only one that's not under budget is the MFT, but they're only over about $1,000. So great job to everybody that kept it under budget.
Thank you, Trustee Carter. Trustee Weisenberg?
Yes. According to the Open Meetings Act, we were legally obligated to review our closed sessions twice a year. I brought this issue up several times before the COVID-19 issue, and we still have not reviewed our closed sessions. And from what I understand, that's on the back of the board, so I don't want to be held legally liable for not reviewing those closed sessions. So when are we going to review those closed sessions?
Well, let's talk with council tomorrow.
Yeah, I would say as soon as we can get together and have an executive session and approve that, I think that's
Yeah,
what
that's-
we're waiting for. And we
Really
all
should be done in an executive session to review the minutes that
Right.
come out of executive session, so we,
Because reviewing the Open Meetings Act in Illinois, it falls on the clerk and the board to make sure this happens. So I don't want someone coming to me and say, hey, you're violating the Open Meetings Act. And I'm going to say, no, I haven't, because I've talked about it several times now.
Well, I've discussed this with council, and we're just waiting to get back together so we can have an executive session and go over that, along with a couple other updates
Okay.
that we had. If you remember right, we held off on, right before this hit, because we had a handful of updates. We had a court ruling on property I wanted to update the board with, so we held off on that, and we're going to do it all together, and then this hit. So it was a perfect storm, and now here we are sitting with the end of our budget year, and we still have that to do. So
Okay.
I'm fully aware of it, and I've had discussion with council on this. He's aware of it, but we're just waiting for that time to break where we get everybody together again.
Okay.
So-
I just know how sensitive people are with the Open Meetings Act, so I don't want to be on the wrong side of it.
all right, point well taken. Anyone else? Just one item. After the governor's press conference today, we had a conference call with Senator Kaler and got some encouraging news from Senator Kaler. Mayor Ardis was called out specifically today by the governor about his leadership, so I'm actually going to be calling Mayor Ardis in a little bit and hoping to get an update from him. And so that's this phased-in process I hope will work, and we're all anxious to get back to normal. Okay, we've got payment of the bills. I would ask for a motion to pay the bills.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions on the bills or discussion on the motion?
I do have a question on the bills, but I'll get with Stephanie tomorrow. But I do have another question if I could ask it.
Yes, go ahead, Trustee Carter, absolutely.
That's under the miscellaneous. So when you said that you talked to Senator Taylor, and you're going to get ready to talk to Mayor Hardis, is that about reopening the village of Peoria Heights?
Well, to get more information, so I can have Dustin send it to you, but today the governor announced 5 phases of what's called Restore
Yeah, I
Illinois.
saw that.
And so Mayor Ardis is leading a dialogue with the governor to hopefully, to make things happen sooner than later, but obviously we have to keep public safety first and foremost, and Mayor Ardis has been a leader in making sure that we listen to the health and science community first as we make decisions.
So we are, okay. Who elected Mayor Ardis to speak for us, you, or is it he just took it and let it?
Well, there's a group of a dozen or more local mayors who communicate nearly every day and collaborate and communicate, and Mayor Ardis, being the mayor of the biggest city in the region, certainly has a voice and a role in all of this. East Peoria's mayor has spoken out, as has other mayors in the region, and just like normal, there's sometimes a difference of opinion, but I speak with all the mayors on a fairly regular basis.
Okay, I was just curious how he became the leader of the package, so to speak. Okay, so we are talking about phases. My opinion, we need to start opening up. We need to get this phase going and get this economy back. But that's just my opinion.
I think I'll
Are you
echo.
planning to the orders of the governor,
I'm-
Mayor Phelan?
What was the question?
And did you happen to hear Pritzker's news release or news conference today?
Not in its entirety. We were on a call with House Levine. So no.
Okay. Well, we had his phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. And I was wondering if you were planning to kind of go along those same lines with the executive orders, or are we planning to cross over that, or do you have any idea?
That's what we're doing right now. We're following federal and state guidelines in everything we do.
Okay, but Trustee Carter just said she wanted to get things rolling and get it open, which isn't necessarily going to follow what he's saying.
Well, I think we're all
That's
anxious,
what I'm asking.
we're
That's
anxious to
my
get back,
opinion.
mute those. We're anxious to get back to normal, everyone is, but we're certainly going to be following what the guidelines the governor are directing. That's what we're doing right now. But dialogue is good, and questions are good, and sometimes protests and criticism can be good when done civilly, and we're all in uncharted territory. So that's why mayors are talking. That's why mayors are talking with the governor. We're talking with our state representatives, Senator Kaler today. The EDC is involved. Health departments are involved. So no one has the answers, and there, again, are differences of opinion. But as we sit here today, the governor has a directive, and we are following that locally. And I believe we're on payment of the bills.
Right.
Anyone else on payment of the bills?
If I could make a comment real quickly, Mayor, just to echo, I think what Trustee Carter was saying, is I put much more.
Can we get the bills paid and we'll come back to this?
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
We got a motion and a second on payment of the bills. Any questions on the bills or any discussion on that motion?
I got a few questions.
Go ahead.
Stephanie, when it says state income tax, I believe that's under revenue. Is that a share of what I pay in, or all of us pay in state income tax?
Yes, so there are certain taxes that we receive per capita. This is one of them. Based on our population count, we receive a percentage of state income.
That's what I thought. So isn't that going to take a hit as well with people unemployed?
No, so this is based off of payments as they're made. So we would be receiving payments from last year, so those are still owed.
Okay.
We're going to see probably a decrease next year, possibly.
Okay.
Most likely what we'll see is a cash flow. We'll see it come in at different times than we're used to.
Okay. And I got one more. Let me get here to my highlighted. So under the waterworks, where it says transfer of treasurer's pay, why would the treasurer's pay be transferred from the water department?
So the current interim treasurer is a waterworks employee, so they are paid on the waterworks pay, and then at the end of the year, I made the transfer because the village general fund is the one who pays the elected officials.
Understood. And, sorry, I had two more. Sorry, there's a lot of pages here. Under PR consulting services with Mike Bailey, $3,000. So we've paid him roughly $3,000 every month this year. And I know when we were discussing the fire department and potentially going with a duty crew, we said if we were going to bring someone on as an employee that we'd have to post that position. Mike Bailey is basically an employee because we're paying him, what, $30,000 or $40,000 a year if this continues throughout the entire year. Should we post that position?
You want to take that, all right? Let me take that. If you want to create a position that would probably, you would have to 2 to 3 times the salary, not including benefits, which would be about 40%, and IMRF, we're really not looking to add any positions right now, especially some of the things that you pointed out earlier, but I'll let Chief Sutton follow up on that.
The mayor is correct, but back in January, this was brought up at 19, and then again in July of 19, we discussed this and how we were going to use Mike Bailey, not to exceed the $3,000. Now, it might be, we've had him do a lot this year with the comprehensive plan, the tower talks, the press releases. Now, going back before that, I mean, he's had some lower months, but we have been using him. And to offset that cost, we didn't replace our part-time person that left 9 months ago, 8 months ago. So, you know, we're offsetting those costs. And I think I've had some conversations with some of the trustees individually that, you know, we've cut back some of our consulting with other firms. We weren't getting a lot of bang for our buck. We are with Mike. And the mayor's exactly right. If you're looking at another payroll position, that's benefits, it's IMRF, it's a whole different ballgame. You're 3-4 times what we're paying him. But as far as the last few months, you're right. We have used him a lot, but we've had a lot going on. But if the board decides they don't want to use him, then we can go back on what we discussed back in July. But that I'm going off that discussion. and that's what we did discuss, that would be using him and not to exceed that amount monthly. So,
I just think $100 an hour is a little excessive. I mean, there's nurses out there working the front line that aren't making $100 an hour. And then the newsletter that he keeps saying that he's working on, I've only ever received one newsletter. Has anybody gotten one more than that?
there's been,
I've seen two.
I think I've only seen one. How long have they been in production now, though? I thought it was just started.
I'm trying to remember if there's been 3 and we're on our 4th, or if there's been 2 and we're on our 3rd.
I believe we're either on our 3rd or 4th. I know the one we have now is on hold because of all this going on. That's kind of a moving target as far as what we want on there. So we've had to cancel some meetings, obviously the mayor's town hall meetings. So we've pushed that back, and we're in the process of modifying this last one, but it's either the 3rd or the 4th one.
And I wasn't suggesting
If
we...
I could just chime in here, I have been with Mike Bailey prior to this COVID incident. I mean, he spends hours going out to the trades, meeting with Mayor Phelan, and, meeting with me, meeting with Steve Klein. So he doesn't charge us for all of those different things as far as I know. So I think that he's just invaluable, has been invaluable for Peoria Heights right now. We could revisit it in a few months, but I really think with the press that we've gotten, all the different things going on with PDD group, the Kim group, the BDDs, all these different things, he really is quite an asset.
Well, and we are running an administration here, and he is part of the team of people that we have assembled here. And it's a great value, in my opinion. $100, of course, might sound like a lot, but when you start to pay your own payroll tax, when you start to pay your own retirement, et cetera, go out and find out what consultants or contractual workers get. But when you look at what we are doing, and if the board wants to add a position, I would be opposed to it, but plan on $60,000 to $70,000 plus benefits. Everything that was done through IDOT, all the IDOT communications through $68.5 million capital bill, the communications between Senator Kaler, the podcast, the newsletter is a minor thing of what he does. His job is to make sure that we're running a transparent government here, that the public knows what is going on, and that is his role. So I think we're getting good value for the dollar. I'm going to insist that we have a transparent government, that we reach out with our citizens through social media, through the websites, and all of that. It's been coffees, it's been podcasts, it's been newsletters, yes, but please understand what you're asking about. Know what he's doing first.
What I'll add is, and what I can say to the board is this, is the administrator, we're getting a lot of bang for our buck with Mike Bailey. There are some other areas we cut to offset those costs, and I just mentioned the part-time position we did not fill. He is instrumental. Like the mayor said, he's part of this team a small team that we have here. But, like the mayor said, if the board feels differently, then we can bring it up. And I don't vote, you move forward. But I'll tell you, I've been working with Mike since last year. He's been doing an outstanding job for us here. And Trustee Kazam is right. There are times that he does go out on this stuff and we don't get billed. So, but if you have any other questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Well, in the Heights brand, I mean, if someone thinks that the Heights brand isn't what it was a year and a half ago, I mean, we are out there, and that's part of the job too, is being in the media, being in the forefront. The Heights is hot, the Heights is out there, and that helps us attract businesses and people that want to live here to create a good vibe of what's going on in the community. So that, I think, is important, but if the board decides that you want to eliminate that, then fine. And if you want to hire a position, the way that works is then the administrator will hire that person. So that's how it'll work. Anyone else?
I say we move on.
Can I add something? It's not about the bill. Are we still hiring part-time for the street department? I didn't know if Dave or Mike were on the phone.
Let's get through payment of the bills. We're on payment of the bills.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were done with that.
Well, we need to vote. Trustee Weisenberg, I think you had another question on bills, did you?
No, I have another question. You said we'd wait until after the bills. More of a statement.
Anyone
than a
else,
question.
anyone else on the bills? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter.
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal.
Aye.
Trustee Kazam.
Aye.
Trustee Gatt.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So we'll go to Trustee Weisenberg, then Trustee Carter. We'll just back up to miscellaneous business. So go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, just adding to what Trustee Carter was saying in her reference to Mayor Ardis, is I put much more weight and importance on what Mayor Phelan thinks than what Mayor Ardis thinks. So I think what Trustee Carter was trying to say is, at least and I'm sure she values your opinion and your leadership more than we value Mayor Ardis's. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, thank you for that remark. And again, we're in uncharted
I agree.
territory. So I speak with other mayors, and some I agree more with, and some I don't agree so much with. But we all are talking, and we're talking with the governor, and sometimes, not sometimes, I think talking with the collective voice when you can all agree upon something. So the governor today at least did break down the state into regions, and I think he's listened to mayors who have been appealing to him for that. So again, I have an opinion, and I will act as mayor, and we've been following the governor's directive, and that's what I intend to keep doing with, I want the thoughts of all of my trustees, and some of you shared those with me last week, and I appreciate that. So we all, again, are very anxious to get back to normal, but my primary role, I believe, as mayor is public safety, and I believe the administrator and Chief Sutton takes that seriously too. So again, please share your thoughts with me as things progress. I appreciate that. All right, Trustee Carter, we'd be with you, please.
Okay, I just wanted to ask, are we still hiring part-time help for the street department?
We still are hiring some, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, sorry, Chief. Yes, we are still hiring our 2 part-time summer help, which their duties will be basically lawn mowing. We have applications that are due by next Friday, and their start dates will be around June the 4th. And we have rehired our groundskeeper Tanya for the tower. She started on Monday. And we also have applications out for an assistant groundskeeper to assist her and to also water flowers on the weekends. And that start date is somewhere around the end of May or early June. I will say that I think the chief agrees, these positions, there is no end date on these positions. That's been made clear. So, as far as when they will end, that's all obviously up in the air.
So did we hire the lady that we get for the flowers?
Yes, Tanya, her first year was last year, and yes, she did come back.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Trustee Gett,
I move to adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
There is. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.